Our next guest is here to talk to us about supporting and financing MSMEs in Kenya. Harrison Ngatia is the head of SME development at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. Good morning, Harrison.
Good morning, Eric.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you, and good morning, my listeners.
Mm-hmm. And viewers.
Yes, viewers, yes. I wanted to say viewers.
Yeah, but then you're wondering, okay, is it right?
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Today, you're lucky we have a guest host. So there's somebody else who is here with us. Wangari Moikia is our guest host. She's an economist. She's a lead consultant at EGCL.
Institute.
I was about to say capital. EGCL Capital or EGCL and Partners. To welcome you to the show, Harrison, CT has the day's proverb.
Yes, our proverbs for the whole of this week, ending on Friday, are from the country of Chad.
Mm-hmm.
Chad is somewhere in the middle of Africa. Huge country. The proverb. We'll be asking what you think. There is no such thing as a small fire or a small woman.
There is no such thing as a small fire or a small woman. Harrison, what do you make of that proverb?
What's your
interpretation of this?
What I will interpret is in terms of fire. If it catches anywhere, anyone or any place, it may extend to as far as it can go.
Right.
In terms of the women, I think being that they are the pillars of the society, they contribute and they ensure from the smallest in the family, the child, to the highest in the level of family, they are able to take care of everyone.
Well done. You've navigated that one very well.
Actually, this man, I suspect his wife is listening.
You've navigated that one very well.
Speaking from experience.
He's experienced it. From siblings, from mother to siblings to spouse. Yeah, I mean.
To fires.
To fires. All right. Harrison, first of all, every time we talk about micro, small, and medium enterprises, there's always this whole confusion about the interpretation of MSMEs. What are MSMEs in the Kenyan context? Is it something that we know? We say there's a clear definition by the government of Kenya on this is what qualifies to be a micro, a small, a medium enterprise? Or is it just something that we say, okay, so as long as this biashara is like this, it's an MSME?
Okay, there is a clear definition, which is in the MSME Act, the Micro and Small Enterprise Act. So micro, we look at any businesses that has less than 10 employees. And in terms of turnover, though it's a bit outdated because it was defined in 2012, it's up to 500,000 Kenya shillings. When you go to smaller enterprises, between 10 employees to 50. Then 50? 50 employees.
Okay.
That's small.
That's small. Yeah, that's small. Then
turnover?
In terms of turnover, between 500 to 5 million.
Okay.
Then for the medium enterprise, any enterprise between turnover of between 5 million, which is to around 800 million. Then in terms of employees, between 50 to 250.
To 250.
Yes.
So anything that has an annual turnover, any business that has annual turnover of over 800 is classified as large.
As a large enterprise.
Okay. And what if these two don't match? What if, let's say, you have less than 10 people in your organization but you're raking in more than 500,000 in annual turnover.
So in terms of the operationalization, different entities, if it's financial institutions, look at it from a different angle. So it has not been well defined, because you will always find that if it's financial institution, one financial institutions define it in a different angle. So they will say, we are targeting SMEs between this turnover to this turnover. Okay. So making it very difficult now when organization, especially in the SMEs, when they want to access funding. Yeah. So because of that confusion, it has not been accepted based on different needs and different niche markets that the different financial institutions have.
Okay, so then we're saying that both of those parameters then must be used for the definition in terms of numbers of employees in addition to turnover, because it's possible for you to have one person mm-hmm. or two people in an organization mm-hmm. whose turnover, and they're regarded as micro, right?
Yes.
In terms of that size,
mm-hmm.
but their turnover could be much more than somebody who is in a large, for example, by the nature of what they do, isn't it?
Yes,
it's possible that a micro, in terms of turnover, could be much higher than one who is higher up strata in terms of size.
Yes, that's
so. We are saying that you have to have
a combination
of the two to define.
Yes.
The kind of enterprise.
Yes. But they also look at, there is also the issue of assets. How much does your company have in terms of assets? So there are different metrics that are used for measuring the size of the businesses. Okay. So it depends with the circumstances and the requirements and the needs of who wants to use the metrics.
Okay. What qualifies as being an asset?
Asset, we usually see
this entity, which when you look at, I know, okay, asset.
It's an asset.
Okay, I look at this one.
Is a pen an asset? A desk an asset?
Yes.
A vehicle?
This
machinery?
Flask of mine, asset.
So they are different. We have current assets and long-term assets. Current assets is like liquid cash. Liquid cash is current assets. If you look at uncorrected debts from customers, those are assets. But now they are long-term assets. The intangible assets that are known.
Could you just pause for a second?
Yes.
So it means if I've done business with the county government and they owe me X amount of shillings, that's an asset.
That's an asset.
Okay.
Yes.
And this asset is of benefit to me when I am seeking a loan.
Yes, though it will be evaluated in a way whether you can liquidate that asset so that it can determine whether you can be able to use it for repayment.
So it's essentially fluid.
Okay. It depends.
Yes.
What I'm saying, a debt can be used. There are those debts that are usually they will turn over very fast. The normal debts, probably you have a debt that you with your customers that you will pay within that days.
Yes,
that's a good asset that will be used to access your financial capability to repay loan.
Okay.
So essentially, you're saying that the person who owes me money is the one who's actually being assessed, because in terms of whether I can turn over this debt, the debt exists, but someone has to pay it.
Who owes it?
Yes, who owes it now plays into this.
Essentially, if you have a pending bill of 100 million from the government and you're going and you're saying that's an asset, someone knows very well that you may not be able to settle that 100 million. So it's an asset, but it's a dead asset.
And that's why it's important, even for micro and small enterprises. You know, the way the banks and the big, the large corporates, the way they assess you to get credit. That's a way even a small enterprises should assess before they give out someone.
You know, I'm going with this.
Yes.
I used to be a telephone farmer.
Telephone farmer.
Yes, meaning the farming was taking place elsewhere. I wasn't farming telephones.
Because
I wasn't growing telephones, because if you grow telephones,
needed to clarify that.
Yes,
yeah, well, thank you for the
you grow telephones and
You're
you
a
get
Kenyan
smartphones.
man. We can't just rule it out.
Thank you so much. I used to practice my farming through the phone.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And at any given point, I had something like 30 to 40 people working. Okay? But on and off, depending on whether I needed them to do various duties that one does in the farm. Okay? Now, if you were to assess, I have this number of people working for me. They don't work for me every day, but in the course of the year, they may work for me a total of, say, 3 months, because staggered, but 3 months. I have a piece of land. If these assets were being assessed, first of all, would I fall in that category of a small business because of these people who work for me intermittently? And what then would you be looking at? Because let's say I am farming sugarcane, and the earliest I am likely to get my money is in 18 months. Okay, from the time I plant and do all these things. When I finish everything, I sit back and wait before I am paid. In such a situation, how exactly, well, one, what category would I fall into? Because that category will then determine what it is I can pursue in terms of the benefit of, say, a loan or financial assistance.
In terms of the number of employees, we look at the average numbers. So in
Casual and the casuals and the permanent.
yes, what is your average? You can be engaging 30 to 40 in 3 months, but only probably at any particular time, only 10 to 15.
Yes.
So that's your average number in terms of employees. And in terms of then your turnover, you look at it at the end of 18 months. So it means 18 months you get your payment. So and one of the challenges that especially farmers who do long-term farming have is getting financing that takes care of the period which you may take. So unless mostly they get they will get funding, but there are so many financial institutions who do not understand that, but also they also want to ensure that they are also liquidating their cash flow. So there is a challenge to ensure that farmers' needs are met through funding because of the period that their products will take before they mature and get their payment.
So I should stop farming.
But we have different financing.
Yes.
They not necessarily the commercial financing. Most of them may have challenges, but they are different funding.
So they are products.
Yeah.
They are different products that have actually been designed for farmers.
For farmers, yes.
For different categories of farmers.
You cannot just go to a bank and get that unless a bank has an agriculture product that takes care of that. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question. I mean, today, as we understand it, is World, is it SME or MSME Day?
MSME.
MSME Day.
Yes.
And it should be interesting to understand what that particularly means for us. But then, as I was reading yesterday, I was reading that 98% of all businesses in Kenya are in the category of MSMEs, which blew my mind.
Yes.
This is actually you're actually dealing with everybody. Yeah. And, it would be interesting to understand, how do you, because in my mind, I always used to think about MSMEs. When I think about MSMEs, I think of the mama mbogas, I think of the informal businesses. But actually, the minute I walk out of these studios, everybody is a MSME, right? So how, in the context of SME Day, and in the context of some of the challenges that have been outlined, they say, MSMEs is lack of access to credit, lack of access to markets. If everybody, 98% of businesses are undergoing those challenges, how are you even through the celebrations of today, addressing these for what it seems to be the challenge that everybody is facing, and what progress have we made? Because this story has been there for a long time. Access to credit, logistics management, market access has been there from time immemorial, since we identified this as a category. Are we still saying that those are the challenges paka today, or have we made strides and we are moving forward from a particular point of progress?
Okay, I'll start with why we need to celebrate the MSME. And today, if you look at the way we have said, 98% of the business in Kenya are MSMEs. Just to bring that to perspective, if you look at 800 million, how many businesses have turnover of more than 800 million in Kenya? Yes.
Very few.
Yes. Yeah.
Very few.
They're very few. Yes, and that's why we'll see in terms of the employment of 85% of employment comes from the MSME. So that's why we need to celebrate them. We need to ensure, because they are the one who make sure that we get our food on the table.
Okay.
The other thing is the contribution to the GDP. So they contribute 40% to the GDP in terms of ensuring that, though that needs to be, because if we are saying 98% is from,
it's only contributing 30%.
Then 40%. That at 40%. So I think there's need for us to ensure that they are growing. We ensure that we grow the small bit from micro to small, from small to medium now too. We need to ensure that we are putting.
It's also interesting to find out. I mean, the threshold for small SMEs is 800 million. I mean, I wonder how that number came about, because I would imagine if I had a business that was making 500 million in a year, I would consider that big, but I don't know what the parameters would be. Maybe
seems like it came at a point when the dollar was at 80 bob.
Yes.
So
though looking at in the global statistics, even our large corporates are SMEs in other markets. So
annual turnover of 800 million is high.
So you're thinking about $10 million.
Yep.
Because I guess I was going to ask then the role then that these enterprises, these businesses play in the economy of the nation. And we're looking at Kenya today. Because if we're going to say that there's a certain amount of support that they require to then get from micro to small, from small, then the question is, what is that? And we already established, here in terms of numbers, who works for this business and how much they make. But if we could color it a little bit, who are we talking about when we look at the landscape of Kenya here? Which businesses are we talking about that fall into these spaces, for whom the support is needed? And then what kind of support are we talking about? We know that one of the biggest challenges towards progression for business is access to credit, right? But what other challenges are we looking at? Coming off of, what businesses are we talking about? Are we talking about the guy in his office with a laptop? Are we talking about the lady with a basket of tomatoes that she must sell? Are we talking about the milk vendor who goes from point A to point B? The cart pusher? Who are we speaking of?
I think different the sizes of different businesses require different support. And but if you look at the micro, where the mama bogas, and because that's where they fall in terms of micro, and the Buddhas and all those, the support they require. And if you look at even the 98%, majority of the business falls under micro, and they die within. Once you start, most of those businesses die within 5 years.
5 years.
Why?
Because of lack of adequate support for them to grow and thrive.
So what's that? So now, what's that support? Are we talking about best business practices training? Are we talking about personnel management? Are we talking about credit? What are the reasons we would say that most of these businesses, at the end of 5 years, cease to exist?
What we have noted is there are different reasons, and they look you cannot just provide someone credit and you think that they will thrive because you have given them credit. They need to have skills to also ensure that they are operating and ensuring that they are managing their financing, they are able to repay, they are able to also opportunities for their market, because opportunities for their products, you can have a very good product, but if you don't sell, then that will not mean anything.
Yeah.
So and opportunities could be there, but you don't have the skills to see those opportunities. So and also the policies. There are policies that are not supporting the small businesses. So different myriad of issues that looks at the businesses and hamper them for growth.
And yet
so we have to deal with them holistically. You cannot deal with one.
The same brush as
Yes.
with all of them.
Yes.
This is something that has been talked about and appears to be understood by many, from economists to government people in policy to the people in the financial services sector. All of them talk about the need to support the micro and small enterprises so that they can grow. But does it actually happen? Apart from seeing those, private institutions that come in, to try and bridge the gap, people like Sandbox and others who come and try and bridge the gap in terms of capacity building and all, is there a proper policy framework that supports the identification of micro enterprises, the support of micro enterprises, and seeing how they're walking the journey with them, micro enterprises to become small to become medium? Is there a policy framework for that? I know there's an MSME Act. Secondly, with the kind of confusion that you've just alluded to in the financial services sector, is it because of a lack of harmony in the policy front?
From my end, if you look at the policy framework, I think the policy framework is there. What we lack is adequate funding for the micro, small and enterprise authority to be able to ensure that they implement the different things. Remember, even in the MSME Act, MSEA, which is micro, small and enterprise authority, is supposed to be running a fund so that they support the businesses, which is not yet fully in place. So lack of adequate funding for that institution makes it, because the other institutions which are supporting businesses in different angles, they also don't have adequate funding. So in terms of ensuring that they are doing or they are implementing the activities in scale, it's very limited. So we will find despite having 7 million business over 7 million businesses, probably you will only find less than 100,000 that are being supported by different stakeholders. So in terms of support, there's still very, in terms of numbers, very low numbers that are supported.
So what does that point to? Is that a failure of understanding the policy? Because I've actually looked up at the policy. There's a 2020 policy. 2020 is just the other day. Is this policy actually understood? Was the MSME Act revised to fit into the policy?
No. The MSME Act is yet to be revised. And the policy in terms of implementation, I think, is still not in terms of even being known by the people who are supposed to benefit from it. It's not yet known. Even the MSMEs and most of the policy people may have inadequate knowledge about it. So there is need for even sensitization about the policy so that people know what that policy means and what it means to them, and how then do you ensure that we coordinate all institutions to ensure that they support the policy? Because that's the coordination aspect is also a very that's why you will find few institutions supporting, and they support the same businesses. You will find businesses that get support move from one institutions to
another.
To another. So because of lack of that coordination.
Right.
Yeah.
It's World MSME Day, and Harrison Ngatia is the head of SME development at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. He's our guest this morning, here to talk about the need to support and finance MSMEs in Kenya. This is Kenya's biggest conversation at the Situation Room. We'll be back shortly. Our guest host, Wangari Muikia from the EGCL Institute, here with us until the end of the show. We're talking about the need to support and finance MSMEs in Kenya, and that's what we've been discussing. You talked about, lack of coordination in terms of at policy level, at implementation level, at the various actors level. Paint for us the picture. If there was actual proper coordination, what would we see?
What would see is in terms of support to the MSMEs, we'll see that the numbers that are supported, and we can see the growth from micro to small to medium to large. It's well coordinated in a way that we can say we have provided this number of probably in terms of amount, in terms of credit for this section. We have provided skills to this, especially to the micro and small, so that they can scale. How do we also ensure that we support them to get markets for the products and services? And we can quantify in terms of the support from each level to the other, so that we can say we are working towards growing and ensuring that we are moving from micro to medium to large.
So ideally what we should be seeing today is like, say, a report from the ministry in charge of SMEs talking about the progress, saying in the last 1 year, what we have seen is growth of organizations that were categorized as small becoming medium. X percentage of small companies in the last 3 years have graduated to medium, medium have graduated to large, and we have a new entry of X number of micro enterprises. Then we'd be seeing a clear growth.
And also the support that each category has
been receiving.
Yes. Yeah.
And to follow up, earlier we were reading in the paper about the government providing border riders. I think they fall within the micro enterprises. They're providing NHIF and training. Have you had any input into that kind of conversation? And does that help in your mind or in your experience these borders to then make that progression? Like, what is your thinking around the support that is being given to the border? I'm sure, I don't know if you read in the papers that the president is, providing, I think, 100,000 electric bikes plus support with NHIF and training.
I think that's a good move, because what we have seen, the border riders, if you look at the border industry, there has been a lot of accident in that industry due to a lack of training and lack of understanding how they need to maneuver in the streets. So a lot of issues around that. So having the training and also having an NHIF is a good move. And I think we need even to scale that and ensure that the borders are getting more of that countrywide, because any support that will reduce accident, one, they reduce the expenses that the riders incur in terms of treating the accident, and they also looking at if they get accidents, what it means for them. Mostly if a rider is bedridden, they are not able to provide to their family for the days that they. So getting trainings to be able to ensure that they are safe, I think is a good move. And they also now NHIF to cater for their cost of medical. A very good move for.
And I think
yes.
Sorry, and I think that's interesting, because even when you think about it may be good, but you're talking about the linkages of policy.
Yes.
Recently we just had the Finance Act passed. Then we are asking ourselves, how in your analysis and in your reviews and your submissions, I'm sure you interacted with the government on this, how is the finance bill going to affect, there's the petrol issue. There's taxes being incurred, and then they have to now, the costs are going to go up. How are you supporting these groups? It seems like they may fall even further than micro. They might fall out of business. So what are your thinking around the finance bill, and how are you mitigating that for the micro and small enterprises, micro, small and medium enterprises, especially even in the conversation around the borders?
Okay. I think the most difficult moment, especially for the government, is how to balance what they need to bring and what they need to provide. So in terms of taxation, they need to balance, but in terms of impact, if it's petrol, because we'll have the 8%, that will impact the border. Not only the border, every sector of the economy will be affected by that. Looking for us is looking at the timing, because the timing is usually the one that break or make the businesses. Looking at when do you put in place certain policies and measures to ensure that we are also supporting the business to grow. Yeah. So whereas everyone needs to pay tax to support the government to implement the different things, but also the timing needs to be a bit fair to ensure that we are supporting the businesses.
I'm a bit curious as to then how this would play out, because a lot of times you want it, practicality to say, okay, this is how then this support would be applied, right? What would it look like? Say, for example, if you look at the different pillars that you've mentioned now in terms of the kind of support that's needed for a lot of these businesses, and the bulk of them, did I get you right by saying the bulk of these businesses are micro?
Micro, yes.
Okay. Bulk of these businesses are micro. There's a certain level of support that they need across board. It could be at the beginning of their business, it could be mid-cycle, it could be, as you go ahead. How would it happen? Do people, how would they receive this kind of support? Let's say today that there was agreement to say, yes, we know that this support is needed and we're going to deliver it in 1, 2, 3. How would that happen?
I think there are different programs that are run. You'll think about a program like Uwezo, we have Hustle Funds, we have different programs that happens. But I think we are having too many programs that, in terms of now ensuring that the management cost
is efficient.
How do we ensure that we consolidate all these to ensure that the support is not diluted by the management of the.
So I hear you saying that there's some mechanisms that are already existing, they're already in place.
Yes.
But in terms of then consolidation and making sure that they're actually doing what they were created to do, that would provide support for some of these organizations is not being done. So instead of reinventing the wheel, as it were, because immediately I was thinking, so where is it going to come from? I mean, finance bill has been passed, we don't have money. It's not going to happen there. But what you're saying is that things already exist where they can be strengthened, or they can be used as they were originally envisioned to be used to make sure that some of these things happen, right?
Yes.
What would be the ripple effect? What if today we saw that this 80% of micro businesses got the support that they needed, then became thriving businesses, or at the very least understood what they were supposed to be doing in terms of business? What kind of changes in an economy, for example, would we see if this support that is being clamored for now was living and active? What kind of difference would we see in an economy today where your businesses are thriving?
I think one of the things that we'd see, and if you note from the developed country, because they also have the similar structure in terms of the number of businesses, SMEs and the large corporates, in terms of contribution to the GDP, the developed economies, SME contribute 50%, over 50%. So what that means is that everyone will be able to thrive in terms of they can be able to pay for the service, to feed for their children, to build their own houses. So there will be a ripple effect in every sector of the economy, because people can afford different things for their needs. Yeah.
I think there's also now, there's the funding that you've talked about. There are various funds. Hustler Fund is the latest one.
Yes.
Before that, the Wezo Fund of 2013. Then Women Enterprise Fund.
You have Youth Fund.
Youth Enterprise Development Fund.
Yes.
4 funds. In 1965, there was a Kenya Industrial Estates that was established to support MSME growth across the country. We have a multiplicity of things that are taking place. Now, how can we actually harmonize all these things? For example, today, are all these funds being run by the Ministry of MSMEs? Are they? Apart from the Hustler Fund that we know is under the MSME Ministry.
No.
Is the Wezo Fund under MSME Ministry?
No.
Is the Youth Enterprise Development Fund under MSME Ministry? Is the Women Enterprise Fund so who's running them?
There's AGPO also.
There's the AGPO support for, contracting in government.
I think that's what I was saying in terms of if we can consolidate all these, because I think the impact would be higher if they are consolidated and run by one institutions because of the management aspect. Probably the only aspect, and most of them I know they are supporting, even the women fund is supporting women in businesses. Youth fund is supporting youth in businesses. So why don't we consolidate all these funds and ensure that we run them in a very efficient, and they can be able to reach more businesses in terms of support, so that we can see more funds being utilized for business support than managing the funds.
Are you suggesting that because they're not consolidated, they're not being run professionally?
Not. I think we are losing efficiency by running them separately.
How? How are we losing efficiency?
In terms of from our management and staffing and all those, there's duplication of efforts.
Not really. There are different funds focusing on different groups of people. And I was thinking that in terms, if I were to use the term specialization.
How different, City?
Different in this sense. If you're dealing with youth, whether it is men and women, one entity.
Okay.
Women alone. Maybe you need to categorize it and say, when we say women, we mean this and this and the other. You specialize it. But these funds are specialized funds. They were set up to focus on specific areas, the diversity of individuals we have in the economy. In my mind, that's the idea. If you consolidate them the way I'm thinking, you'll confuse things even more. Because now, you'll have a situation where one goes there, they're not quite sure who to see and who to talk to.
They will be directed.
Then if you're going to...
Even by the askari at the door, shida yako ni gani? And counter 5.
Yes. Just like Huduma. Do you know how Huduma works?
I have absolutely no
Huduma
idea.
Center.
Have you ever interacted to a Huduma?
To a Huduma Center.
I know it is, but I've never had
if
the need.
you go to a Huduma, there are over so many counters for different things which support, and you'll be told, if you want this service, I want to get a birth certificate, go to counter
X.
Go to counter X. If you want any other service,
I've lost my ID, I want to replace ID.
I've interacted with eCitizen, which does exactly what you're saying. Yes.
And you got confused?
No, I didn't get confused.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So consolidation means that there will be. It's only that there needs to be clear.
Actually, you've got it. This is really where I was getting to. You see, all these things, it's not that any of these creations are intended for evil. They're intended for good. But the communication and the understanding of how one can benefit from them is usually what hampers this entire process. You know it exists. What do you do with it? You know you're supposed to. What do you do with it? So when we talk about all these institutions that the government has set up to help the so-called Mwananchi, the communication aspect to ensure the Mwananchi understands how to benefit from it is the one thing that is solely lacking. Saying it exists, you've told us absolutely nothing. It's like telling me a bank exists, so it's telling me a SACCO exists, so.
And also the formalities, the process of getting.
Each of them has a different different regulations.
Yes.
Yeah.
The regulations for accessing Women Fund, Wezo Fund, Youth Enterprise Fund, Hustler Fund, different. The management of all these ones, different. If you just look at what Harrison is saying, in terms of efficiency costs, X amount of money has been put into the Youth Enterprise Development Fund.
Yes.
But they are spending some of it. A small percentage, yes, it's been ring fenced, so a small percentage. That small percentage is paying rent somewhere, is paying staff somewhere, is paying, and there are some staff who really are not like servicing many people in a day. Same thing is happening with Uwezo. Same thing is happening with the Women Fund. Now, if you put them under one, if all of them were under Chelugui's ministry, for example, and there was a coordination with one principal secretary, and then going down, it would be more efficient. Communication would even be better. You know what you're getting into. You know the fund still exists separately. If you're a woman and you're looking for a women enterprise fund, you go. If you're youth and you're looking for youth enterprise development fund, here.
And I think also coupled with that is access, because a lot of the people who actually need these funds may not be able to come to the city or even know how to fill in the application. Maybe even literacy is a problem. So even access to, be able to apply for those funds, I think is something
it's something that one of the hindrances for especially the micro businesses is how to access the funding. May be there, but they may not know
where to go.
They may know where to go, but they may not even know where to start.
Yep.
Once they go there, and they fear even going to those offices. Yes.
All these enterprises have unions, SACCOs, the groupings, all. In this country, two people sneeze turning on the right-hand side.
There's a
SACCO for it. Who sneeze on the right-hand side? What are the efforts that are being made to educate the formation of these people? Because they know their members better than any of us do.
Yes.
They are the best people to communicate this very same thing, because you can't go to each and every one of those people, but within the formations that they belong to, they can be communicated to. I am certain this is already being done. But to what degree is it being done? Because we keep talking about how people default, how people don't do this. Part of it has to do with ignorance. It's not as though someone sets out to default. Is there continuous education for just the processes of managing a business and ensuring that you understand financial probity and all these things? Is there enough effort being made within the units, the formations these people belong to ensure that they actually continuously learn and understand how to go about these things in a better way?
As I said, it's very inadequate. It's there, but we need more. And the communication aspect that you are saying, how do we ensure that government works with the different associations, different unions, different groups? Because most of, especially the micro, operates in groups. How do you ensure that they can communicate some of those things and ensure that they learn sensitizations with them?
And they reach out to many more people. I'm sure if we ask them, each of them, we bring the Youth Fund boss here, we bring the Hustler Fund boss here, all of them will tell you that they are doing this. The Kenya Industrial Estates, among their website, kie.co.ke, here they say that they have trained over 4,000 SMEs countrywide. Okay? Now, our Youth Fund will tell us the same kind of figure. Imagine if all those training budgets were consolidated, so it becomes one big budget and one well-coordinated training effort and marketing effort. Imagine how big it would be. If we have an institution, City, you keep reminding us, 1965. In fact, I've gone in there. The Kenya Industrial Estate was established by the government of Kenya in 1967 with a mandate to promote small and medium industries with a focus on rural industrialization. MSMEs have emerged to be key strategic drivers of socio-economic transformation in developing nations. How much have they? 20 million, 50,000 to 20 million shillings in revenue funding, 35 SME parks and sheds and incubators across the country. So these ones have a network.
They do.
And experience.
They do.
So you bring all these funds under these guys.
No.
But
exactly what it is.
This is the problem. Because a lot of times, which you talked about as well, communication and awareness of some of these things could be the hindrance. Not that there is no support, but that because there is no awareness of that said support, that is what the challenge actually is. We talk about other funds in this country where people have been, and one of those is education, bursary here, the president, the county, the constituency. Everybody's all over the place doing their own thing. But then there's a case to be made for consolidation, because you have a central place whereby everybody can go and get information. And in that one place, you can categorize it if you wish, because then different businesses under this one consolidation can get the information and support that they need? Is there no case to be made for that?
In this country,
Is there no case to be made for it?
No, I think, as you said, information gap is big. It is term of the businesses. And one of the things that we are also trying to support, to provide our support, is ensuring that we have a platform where a business can be able to go and see what are the types of funding opportunities that are available for their businesses, and also the business development services that are available. So through partnership with International Trade Center, we have just created the MSME financing gateway, which you can be able to log in, and once you log in with your details, it will be able to match the different needs that you have, and you can search on the available opportunities. So it's something that we launched in April, and we are hoping that we shall close that information gap as we continue. We know right now we have started from a web, and we want to see how do we ensure that we reach even to the micro by ensuring that they can be able to query through the Kababe. So it's a work in progress, and we are looking at scaling, but we have already started, and we are ensuring that we should be able to close or bridge that information gap that is available in the market.
And this is with support from which institutions again?
International Trade Center, ITC.
International Trade Center.
Yeah, it's a body under UN.
Okay. So how does one get support now through KEPSA? If somebody who's running a small micro enterprise is listening and they'd like to get out into this kind of support, how do they do it?
We usually learn different programs and at KEPSA, and we learn them through the social media, through the website, and just like the MSME financing gateway, we'll be launching a new program that will be looking at bridging the financing gap, especially for those who cannot be able to access the commercial. For what we intend to do is to ensure that we are able to support them and move them to commercial so that we can be able to support more. So it will be a 5-year program. We'll be launching very soon, and looking at also we are running different capacity building programs. How do we ensure that different businesses are investor ready, whether for financing from the banks or from different funding opportunities that are available, whether it's equity. So it's something that we are working on, and how do we also ensure that they can be they can take advantage of the AfCFTA. Africa, so
Continental Free Trade Area.
So,
Harrison, we thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Harrison Ngatia is the head of SME development at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. He's been our guest on the World MSME Day. Keep it here for more conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.